Hello to you, Oksana. What's happening in the State Duma at the moment, and what can we expect from today's discussions?
Well, Karen, this meeting is slated to begin any minute now, and it is receiving a lot of media attention. There are several dozen TV crews covering these public hearings. We are also expecting to hear from both Russian officials from several ministries and officials representing these three breakaway regions, including, as we were told, their leaders, their presidents. Well, the reason why Russian parliament is considering this issue today is because parliaments of all these three regions, Abkhazia, South Ossetia and Transdniester, earlier this month appealed Russia to recognize their independence. Well, there's nothing new in that, of course. They've been asking for that for more than a decade now. But it seems that events in Kosovo have indeed rekindled their secessionist aspirations, and they're now citing Kosovo's declaration of independence as a legal precedent that they intend to follow. In terms of what we can expect today, we will probably hear a lot of fiery statements. We may hear some statements in support of independence of these regions, but what's important to keep in mind here that this is indeed a public hearing. It's not a formal session, so any resolution coming out as a result of that might be considered as a recommendation or as expression of different opinions and different views, but it is in no way a formal position of the Russian parliament. So if indeed we hear some Russian deputies voicing their support for, say, Abkhazia's independence, that doesn't mean that this is a formal official position of the Russian parliament as a whole.
And Oksana, speaking more detail about Abkhazia, only last week Russia lifted economic sanctions against the breakaway republic. It looks like Abkhazia is of particular interest to Russia these days, doesn't it?
Well, the sanctions that you are talking about were introduced back in 1996 by Russia and some other CIS countries, and they included a ban on exports of Abkhazian goods and some limitations for the imports of goods to Abkhazia. And indeed, last week, Russia removed these sanctions, raising criticism in Georgia. But I have to know that indeed these sanctions that existed for more than a decade damaged greatly Abkhazia's economy, which still remains heavily reliant on Russia. Abkhazia uses the Russian ruble as its currency, and it is a popular tourist destination for many Russians. For example, Abkhazian officials say that last year more than 1 million of Russian citizens of Russian tourists visited this region. So indeed there are some economic interests in this region for Russia, and some suggest that there's even an additional impetus for developing economic ties with Abkhazia now that Sochi, the Russian city of Sochi, has been named the host city for the 2014 Winter Olympic Games. Abkhazia is just a couple of kilometers from Sochi, and both Abkhazian and Russian officials expressed their intention to use Abkhazian facilities and resources for the Olympic construction projects, which hasn't been met with too much excitement on the Georgian part.
And Oksana, very briefly, if you can, another bone of contention in Russian-Georgian relations is Georgia's declared aspiration to join NATO. Are these issues connected in some way or another?
Well, if you talk to Georgian officials, they certainly see a connection here. They even suggest that this public hearing that we are witnessing in Moscow today is yet another attempt by Russia to derail Georgia's bid to join NATO, and that Russia is trying to set the stage for the upcoming NATO summit in Romania next month that is expected to discuss whether or not to launch the formal membership process for Georgia, which Russia strongly opposes, as you know. And Russian envoy went as far as to say that if Georgia is indeed put on track of the alliance membership, that would only deepen the existing disagreements between Georgia on one side and Abkhazia and South Ossetia on the other side, and that would indeed increase chances of these two regions' independence.
Oksana, thank you very much for that. That was our correspondent Oksana Boyka reporting there. And protests are underway in the Georgian capital against the Russian parliament's discussion of the issue. Several dozen people are picketing the Russian embassy in Tbilisi. The protest was organized by NGOs and the pro-Georgian administration of South Ossetia. They're calling the parliament's discussion a provocation and say Moscow is giving false hope to Georgia's breakaway regions because it will not recognize